And welcome to This Is Now. A short time ago, Governor Josh Green wrapped up a news conference in which he outlined several new initiatives.
That's right. The governor touched on a number of key topics related to schools, housing, and tourism. Here are some of the key bullet points. Re-entry to Lahaina begins Monday, where residents will have time to survey their properties. 18 more months of rental assistance remains available through FEMA, and there is discussion underway for a replacement site for King Kamehameha III Elementary School. Much of the news conference centered on the October 8th date when West Maui is reopened to outside visitors, and the state made it clear no survivors will be displaced from temporary housing.
I'm here to tell you here on day 44, our hearts are still broken. They still are broken 97 times over. 97 people have been lost, and 80 individuals have been identified, and there are 23 open investigations still, or active investigations by the Maui police. So I wanted to share that with you. That's where we still are today.
We're pleading to homeowners and unit owners that if you have additional units, please put them into this program, because we need as many programs as we possibly can to move people from the hotels into shelters, into more comfortable shelters like Airbnb, like a vacation rental, places that have a kitchen. Just the simple fact of a regular refrigerator and a stove. These are the types of accommodations that we're looking to house our survivors, and we will not stop until we get to that end. Moving forward, we are working with these associations to provide these rooms, and in the meantime, we want everyone out there to know that we do not condone properties that are asking survivors, including their own hotel employees, to leave without another housing solution in place. So we want to make that clear. We want to make sure that every single survivor has an opportunity, wherever that may be, for shelter, during this time period.
Should victim survivors be forced to move in order for incoming tourists to come in on October 8th?
I think I was very clear in our opening that the answer is no. We don't think anyone will need to be moved, forced to be moved. There is a counter narrative that we should not open up for several years. That's not possible. But we won't displace individuals who are currently in hotels or other Airbnbs or other housing to accommodate anyone. Like I said, we don't anticipate a large number of people coming, but we also didn't want the many people who asked us to open up have to relocate themselves. About 85% of the people that we spoke to asked us to open up almost immediately so that they could keep their jobs. Others will feel differently, and we're not going to pressure them to go back to work or to do anything of the sort. But we do know that recovery has to begin.
The governor also added he is considering a moratorium on short-term rentals, and he renewed the request for people to offer their rentals to survivors.
We'll have much more on this in later editions of Hawaii News Now, and if you want, you can watch the press conference in full on our HNN Facebook page. Let's go ahead and give you more news out of Maui, including the plan to let residents back into the burn zone. Starting Monday, some Lahaina residents will be allowed to return to their properties. County officials are allowing people in by zones. The first zone will be 1C. The county released a map showing how the town is now divided into those zones. Owners and residents with vehicle passes will be allowed into the area from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Vehicle passes will be available for pickup at the Lahaina Civic Center this Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. For more details on how to get a pass, go to hawaiinewsnow.com. In all, there are 17 primary and 83 subzones covering more than 2,100 acres of land in Lahaina. Residents are being allowed to return to their zones once it's deemed safe by a multi-agency task force. We're told the county will provide water, shade, washing stations, and portable toilets.
But despite fears of looting and mayhem in the weeks after the fires, Maui's crime rates actually dropped. Police Chief John Pelletier told the Police Commission that violent crime was down 22% in August, and property crime dropped 27%. He credited the spirit of aloha after the tragedy. The chief also previewed MPD's internal review on what the department did right and wrong and the conditions officers faced in Lahaina. Pelletier says dispatchers took more than 4,500 calls that day, nearly triple what they normally get.
people left because we were on our PAs and bullhorns going up and down those neighborhoods. That saved lives. We'll never know how many, but it's countless. It saved lives. We broke down gates to get people out. Gates that didn't allow people egress out of affected areas. They literally used their bodies as rams and threw themselves against the gates to break them down.
MPD says its internal review, known as an after-action report, is expected to be released in the next 2 years.
Now, in the wake of the fires, state and county leaders are reconsidering the way water is used on the Valley Isle. Our Daryl Huff says officials are hearing suggestions and taking a closer look at how the leeward side got so dry.
The fallow fields of invasive grasses above Lahaina may have been where the deadly fires began, but even before that, they were symptomatic of an environment starving for water. At an emotional meeting of the Water Commission Tuesday, staff gave a chilling description of the ongoing drought.
Essentially, we're in a new climate pattern.
One example is Kawaula Stream, which sustains taro farms as well as irrigation for luxury homes above Launiopoko. Hydrologist Aaron Strock told the commission the diversion for irrigation may have to stop.
And there is not sufficient water to meet all of these needs.
But he also presented a potential solution to expand plans for the county's new wastewater recycling system by repurposing and restoring reservoirs, pipelines, and ditches to make the recycled water for irrigation available across West Maui and bringing drinkable water from 2 high mountain tunnels into the county system.
We came up with the idea, but we're looking to the county to implement because we really want them to be the end users and distributors.
Land and Natural Resources Chair Don Chang said funding could be added to the state's request for disaster relief from Congress, and one commissioner was ready to sell the idea to funders.
If they could see the impact of investment being really a long-term improved, use of water and mitigation of the risk for wildfire because you have more land, less land in fallow.
The plan would also win over environmentalists who support traditional farming and have fought for reuse of wastewater instead of injecting into the ground and polluting the ocean.
This recycled water is a very valuable resource for irrigation, and it's also very harmful to the reef. So let's keep it off the reef and reuse it.
The plan would also need approval by the legislature and the county and is only part of the solution, so it won't bring a quick end to West Maui's water battles. Daryl Huff, Hawaii News Now.
Now to news on Oahu. A 21-year-old man is dead following a motorcycle crash near the Waipahu off-ramp. It happened on the H1 around 7:30 last night. Police say the man was speeding on his motorcycle and weaving through traffic. He apparently tried to swerve back onto the freeway from the exit lane, colliding with a safety barrier. He was thrown from the motorcycle and was hit by another driver. The rider was taken to a nearby hospital in critical condition. Police learned that he was pronounced dead just before midnight. Police also say he was wearing a helmet and speed appears to be a factor of the crash. This marks Oahu's 41st traffic fatality this year compared to 37 this same time last year.
Kauai police have arrested a 40-year-old woman in connection with the Chris Santos manhunt investigation. Police say Tiana Lita was arrested on Tuesday and charged with first-degree hindering prosecution. It's believed she helped Santos while on the run by giving him money, transportation, weapons, and disguises to avoid authorities. She faces up to 5 years in prison. Authorities said anyone else who is found to have assisted Santos will be held accountable to the full extent of the law. Only on Hawaii News Now, a deputy city prosecutor is relieved of her duties after an H&N Investigates report that she allegedly showed crime scene photos during public presentations. The problem is some of the cases are awaiting trial. Our chief investigative reporter Lynn Kawano broke the story Monday and has more on how the issue could put multiple cases at risk.
More than one high-profile case could be affected. There are at least 2 others involving kupuna victims that the prosecutor's office will have to review. Keith Catalico is charged with about a dozen crimes relating to alleged sprees from 2020 and 2021, including this jewelry heist at a Restaurant Row store. He is also a suspect in a Kahala home invasion where a 76-year-old woman was restrained using zip ties. The case was being prosecuted by the Elder Abuse Unit, a unit now under fire after a defense attorney told the court the head of the unit showed crime scene photos and information from active active cases doing multiple presentations to teach kupuna about protecting themselves.
It could have a huge impact on all the cases that are pending in the First Circuit Court.
Miles Briner represents Juan Barron, who is accused of murdering 73-year-old Gary Ruby, then encasing his body in cement in a bathtub of his Hawaii Lower Ridge home. Briner filed a motion to dismiss the case, citing prosecutorial misconduct, after he learned the confidential information and crime scene pictures were also part of the presentations. The deputy prosecutor over the Elder Abuse Unit was relieved of her duties on Tuesday, one day after a Hawaii News Now report exposed the controversy.
It isn't just her cases. As a supervisor, our information is that she instructed her subordinate deputy prosecutors to provide actual discovery, photographs, and images that had not been released to the public.
Terminating the deputy prosecuting attorney is not going to fix the problem of the case potentially being dismissed, because the violation has already occurred.
A new deputy prosecutor has been assigned to both the Carolico and Barron cases. A judge will have to decide if that's enough or if the Barron case should be dismissed.
It's wrong, but I don't think it's to the extent that it should be warrant dismissal. I don't think it should warrant necessarily disqualification of the prosecutor's office. There's less alternatives.
Retired Judge Randy Lee says one alternative, the Attorney General's office could try to take the case to trial instead. The prosecutor's office said they will be reviewing all of her active cases now that she's been terminated. I'm Lynn Kawano, Hawaii News Now.
In news across the nation, police were back at the scene of a New York daycare where 4 children overdosed last week and one of them died. Alice Gaynor has the story.
Neither suspect was here in the courtroom since both are in federal custody. Attorneys for each waived their appearances. Meantime, on Thursday, a new search warrant was executed at the daycare center. Sources tell us police are looking for traps and false walls commonly found in drug stash houses. The NYPD's crime scene unit is back at Divino Niño Daycare Center in the Bronx, searching the entire place. Last week, 1-year-old Nicholas Dominici died after being exposed to fentanyl, and several other children were sickened at the daycare and hospitalized. During a previous search, officials found a kilo of fentanyl stored on top of playmats used by the children and kilo presses. The daycare's owner, 36-year-old Gray Mendez, and her husband's cousin who rents a room there, 41-year-old Carlisto Acevedo Brito, were arrested and charged in state court with murder of depraved indifference. Earlier this week, they were also slapped with federal narcotics conspiracy charges, which carry a sentence of 20 years to life in prison. During that federal court appearance, Mendez cried and denied any knowledge of a drug operation. Brito denies it too. Federal prosecutors accuse Mendez of playing a role in the drug distribution and in helping her husband escape. They're still looking for him. It's alleged on Friday afternoon, after discovering the children were not waking up from their nap, she made 3 calls. 2 to her husband, the 3rd to 911. Today at Bronx Supreme Court, attorneys for both Mendez and Brito had no comment. Both defendants opted not to testify before a grand jury here at Bronx Supreme Court. Their next court date is October 5th. Alice Gaynor, CBS News, the Bronx, New York.
Ukraine's president is visiting Washington today, trying to convince lawmakers to keep supporting his country in its fight against Russia. President Biden has requested another $24 billion in aid. Natalie Brand reports from Capitol Hill.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky is making the rounds on Capitol Hill, lobbying for additional U.S. assistance to help fight Russia. During his last visit in December of 2022, a joint session of Congress gave him a warm welcome. But since then, divisions have grown. Some Republicans are pushing back against President Biden's request for an additional $24 billion in military and humanitarian aid for Ukraine.
They need to make the case for Ukraine. If they have a strategy to win, let's hear it. If they have a strategy to actually end this conflict, let's hear it.
Other Republican lawmakers remain firmly in Ukraine's corner, arguing this is about defending democracy.
If you let Putin get away with this, you better get ready to fight China and Taiwan. And if you're not willing to do that, you're going to have a world where chaos reigns.
President Biden will welcome Zelensky to the White House this afternoon. Aides say the face-to-face meeting is an opportunity for the president to get a battlefield perspective.
Zelensky is also meeting with U.S. military leaders, his first visit to the Pentagon since the war in Ukraine began. The Biden administration says his trip to the U.S. comes at a critical time, given Russia's outreach to countries like North Korea and on the heels of new strikes in Ukraine overnight. Natalie Brandt, CBS News, the White House.
New claims for unemployment benefits tumbled last week to the lowest level since January. The Department of Labor says there were 201,000 initial claims for unemployment insurance for the week ending September 16th. That's a 20,000 claim drop from the week prior of 221,000. The latest tally is also well below what economists were expecting. Weekly jobless claims remain below historical and pre-pandemic averages, showing the strength of the job market. In the decade before the pandemic, weekly claims for unemployment averaged 311,000. Let's go ahead and send you outside for a live look over beautiful Honolulu. Now, this is your last full day of summer because fall is kicking in tomorrow evening. Our guy Hoggy will have more on your local weather right after a short break.
How's it on this Thursday? We are in the meat of hurricane season and still very quiet here in the Central Pacific. However, we are checking on the progress and keeping an eye on Tropical Storm Kenneth. It's about, almost 2,000 miles away from us, but it will not pose a threat to us. It's going to live and die out in the open ocean. We're not expecting any impact from that tropical cyclone. This morning, handful of showers coming in with the trade wind flow, and considering that many areas across states suffering from drought, we'll gladly take those showers, although they won't be lingering past the morning hours. Now you can see those trade winds already stepping up. They'll be stronger today, tomorrow, and Saturday than they've been, running about 15 to 25 miles an hour. Overall, though, the beautiful, pleasant trade wind conditions will continue. So again, in a nutshell, a few morning showers for windward areas, lots of leeward sunshine, high temperatures running into the upper 80s, and humidity levels will be at moderate levels, nothing too high humidity-wise because of those breezy winds. And also because of those breezy winds, we've got the largest surf rolling into the east side, but conditions there are choppy. And we still got a little bit of leftover from a small pulse moving into the south shore. So it's going to be very brisk and breezy into the first day of fall, which actually starts Friday night. First day of fall is actually on Saturday. Those winds will start to ease up just slightly on Sunday, but the overall pleasant weather pattern isn't changing anytime soon.
Loved ones are remembering Miss Hawaii 1964, Lena Ala and Teruya Drummond.
Lena Ala and Teruya, Miss Hawaii.
She died on Monday after a battle with cancer. The Wailuku native performed a monologue and placed in the top 10 at Miss America. Her son says she was always Miss Aloha.
She's really been more than anyone I've ever known, just the embodiment of aloha, and just always open arms, always an open heart for everybody, just loving, really that unconditional love.
Drummond was also hired as a model for Hawaiian Airlines just before they unveiled its Puolani logo in 1973. Lena Ala Teruya Drummond was 77 years old.
Well, a major move in immigration by the Biden administration. The president is granting temporary legal status to nearly 500,000 Venezuelan migrants. Manuel Bojorquez has the story.
You are at a crisis level here.
I would say yes.
John Martin is deputy director of the shelter in El Paso. He says the inflow of migrants has been increasing for weeks.
All of the downtown shelters are all working over capacity. We simply don't want to say no.
At another migrant support center, even the floor is welcome refuge for Marjories Hernandez and Carlos Mota and their 2 small children. It took them 2 months to make the more than 3,000-mile trek from Venezuela to Texas.
There is work, but you can't make ends meet.
As first reported by CBS News, the Biden administration is granting temporary legal status to more than 470,000 Venezuelan migrants already in the U.S. The move promises to speed up their approvals for work permits. That could potentially ease the pressure on states to provide services such as housing to tens of thousands of migrants.
I anticipate, unfortunately, that we'll continue to see these increases on a daily basis.
Near Eagle Pass, Texas this week, more than 5,000 people streamed through in a day. The influx prompted the mayor to sign an emergency declaration, while in Arizona, hundreds were detained, some in makeshift cages. The influx is also being felt in states thousands of miles away.
Don't try to send people.
In New York, migrant arrivals have divided the city. Officials say $2 billion has been spent since last year to house more than 100,000 migrants bused to the city. Many asylum seekers told us waiting in Mexico was not a viable option.
In your view, Mexico is just too unsafe. Muy peligroso allí para usted y su familia.
Es horrible.
On Wednesday, the Defense Department said it would send an additional 800 active duty servicemen and women to the border to supplement the 2,500 who are already here. Manuel Bojorquez, CBS News, El Paso.
Now to some news from the feeds. McDonald's is once again being sued after a customer allegedly burned herself after spilling hot coffee. According to the lawsuit, an elderly woman alleges that she was served a scalding hot cup of coffee with an improperly attached lid from a McDonald's restaurant in San Francisco. As a result, the coffee allegedly poured onto her lap as she tried drinking it, causing severe burns. The lawsuit also alleges that the restaurant employees refused to help her. But in a statement, McDonald's CEO says that the employees and management spoke to her within minutes of the incident. The CEO also says the company is reviewing the claim in detail. The company was previously sued in 1992 after a woman suffered third-degree burns after spilling coffee. She was initially awarded nearly $3 million, but later settled for roughly $480,000. And earlier this year, a family was awarded $800,000 after a toddler was burned by hot chicken nuggets served by the fast food chain.
Meanwhile, Starbucks is also facing a lawsuit of its own over a fruit drink that's missing the advertised fruit. That's a claim in a consumer protection lawsuit against Starbucks over their Refresher line of drinks. A New York resident and a California resident brought the suit, and then the drinks in question are the Refresher line, mango dragon fruit lemonade, pineapple passion fruit lemonade, strawberry acai, and strawberry acai lemonade. They say the drinks did not have mango, passion fruit, or acai, and they said they would not have paid a premium price for the drinks if they had known they were missing some of the fruits advertised. Starbucks says the allegations were inaccurate and without merit. Well, now to some fun headlines. Talk about a new Guinness World Record was made on the Big Island. Take a look at this kalo that weighs a whopping 50 pounds.
Whoa.
Clarence Medeiros of Kona grew it last year, relying solely on rainwater and without using any fertilizers. He plants his kalo in black soil just like he learned from his father and grandfather. So this is a family affair. So many follow-up questions to emerge with a story like this. I mean, can you imagine the feeling of when he's digging it up and it just keeps going and going and going?
A lot of poi there. And I also have to say, my grandma's ohana, they have roots in Hanalei Valley, and they used to grow kalo. But nothing the size of this, for sure. But it's amazing to see. Look at that. That is a feat of nature, for sure.
Pa'iai, kulolo.
And one scoop of halpia ice cream, and you got yourself a sweet lady of Waihole right there. We're going to end today with one more live look outside over beautiful Honolulu. Thanks for watching. This is Now. Mark is back at 4 o'clock. Have a great day, everyone.